Hey class, today what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to solve equations. So there's a few rules that we want to go over. Whenever we solve equations, whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do it to the other. So it's kind of like a balance. Whenever you do, like if we subtract 5 from one side, you have to subtract 5 from the other side. And the other thing is that our goal whenever we're solving these equations is to isolate the variable, whatever it is, whether it's x or y or a, whatever the variable is, we got to get it by itself on one side of the equal sign, and everything else is going to be on the other side of the equal sign. So let's do a few examples. All right, so example 1, we've got q minus 2 equals 6q minus 3q plus 8. So this is where that combining like terms stuff is going to come in handy. We can only combine like terms if they're on the same side of the equal sign. So what I usually like to do is draw a vertical line to help me keep my two sides separate. And I know that my 6q and my 6q, or my negative 3q, those are going to be like terms. So I squared them, combined them, 6q minus 3q, that gives me 3q. Still have the plus 8, I bring it down, all this stuff. I didn't do anything to the other stuff, so I'm just going to bring it straight down to the next line. All right, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my q, I'm going to subtract q on both sides. Remember, I got to isolate the variable. So in order to isolate it, I got to get both of them, I got to get them to one side. So I like dealing with positive numbers, so I'm going to take and subtract a q from both sides. Whenever I subtract q from a q, that leaves me with 0. So what I do is I bring down the negative 2. This is 3q minus 1q, so then I have 2 q's left, and then I bring down the plus 8. Next, remember I got to get the q by itself, so that means I got to get rid of this plus 8. And so in order to get rid of plus 8, I need to subtract 8. So, and whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I take negative 2 minus 8, that gives me negative 10, equals 2q, I just bring that straight down. Now I have to get q by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And whenever you do that, I got negative 10 divided by 2, that gives me negative 5. So q is equal to negative 5. All right, next example. We've got 10x equals negative 2 times, parentheses, negative 5x minus 8. Now whenever you have parentheses, you want to distribute first. So I'm going to distribute the negative 2 times the negative 5. That gives me positive 10. And the negative 2 times the negative 8 gives me positive 16. Got to get the variable to one side. So I'm going to take this, it doesn't really matter which one you do. I'm going to take that because I got this number over here. So I'm going to take that 10x away from both sides. I got 10x minus 10x, that gives me 0 equals 16. Which doesn't make any sense. Whenever you get this, where it doesn't make any sense, you're going to have no solution. All right, example 3, we've got another set of parentheses. We're going to distribute, so the 5 times the m, 5 times the 6, that gives me 5m plus 30. This stuff I just bring down another time, or another line. And I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides. I'm going to get m by itself, so whenever I subtract 30 from here, subtract 30 from here, I'm left with 0, so I just cancel those out. I'm left with 5m is equal to 4m. So what I want to do is get one variable. I got to get the variable on one side, so I'm going to subtract 4m from both sides because I like positive numbers. 5 minus 4 gives me 1m, and that, if I got 4m minus 4m, that gives me 0 over here, so m is equal to 0. Be very careful, this one is not no solution. This one is m is equal to 0. A lot of people like to call this no solution, 5m equals 4m, but it's actually, if you subtract the 4m over here, you get that 1m is equal to 0, which is fine. You can have an answer of 0. All right, last one. This one's pretty long. We've got two sets of parentheses, so I want to distribute. So I do negative 2 times 3x, that gives me negative 6x. Negative 2 times 4 gives me negative 8. Got a 3 times a 5, that gives me 15x, and I got a 3 times a 2, that gives me 6. All right, so I'm on the same side of my equal sign. I'm going to combine my like terms, so I got my x's, and I got my constants. So negative 6x plus 15x, that gives me 9x. And then I got negative 8 plus 6, that gives me negative 2. Now I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. It gives me 45 over here is equal to 9x. I just bring that down because I haven't messed with it. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 9, get x by itself. So I get x is equal to 5 because 45 divided by 9 is equal to 5. Got one more example, and that would be word problems. So solving a word problem, what we want to do, first thing you want to do is read it very carefully. So we've got a health club charges a $50 initial fee plus $2 for each visit. Mary has spent a total of $144 at the health club this year. How many visits has she had? So the first thing that's going to be very important is this $50 of initial fee. So that you may want to underline that, highlight it, whatever you got. Then we're doing plus, so that means we're going to do that addition operation. And I got $2 for each visit. Okay. Then we know that she spent $144 total, and so then we want to figure out how many visits. So you might want to circle your question, and that's going to tell you kind of what your variable is. We don't know how many visits she had, so what I want to do is I want to define my variable. So I'm going to let X represent the number of visits that Mary had to the health club. I know that she got charged $50 to start off with, so that's a one-time fee. And it says plus, so I bring my plus down. And it's $2 for each visit. So $2 times the number of visits that we have. I don't know that number, so I'm going to let it X represent that number. I know that's equal to the amount of money that she spent at the health club. All right, so we get 50 plus 2X equals 144. Now I have to solve. So I want to get X by itself. I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides, get 94, then divide both sides by 2, and I get that X is equal to 47 visits. And that is solving equations.